Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. This is going to be a quick one because it is ungodly hot today on this beginning of May, Monday, early afternoon. So I said yesterday that I was going to try out the Dolby Cinema that they just put in at my AMC. I use AMC a lot because I have AMC A-list, so I get to see 3 movies a week for 20. I think it's 21 now if you sign up, but it is, what's it called? I get to, I see 3 movies a week, and Dolby is included. Now, the Dolby opened up when The Curse of La Llorona came out, and then Endgame came out and bumped it out of the one screen it has, and for the first week or so, or a little over a week, you couldn't get a seat in there because everyone wanted to see this movie in Dolby. So today, Monday, I finally get to go. It seems a little bit like a 4DX theater, just without the moving chairs and without the without the smells pumped in and things like that. Because a 4DX theater is kind of like one of those Disney rides, but less moving. This is kind of like, it's like that, but without the moving chairs. The chairs vibrate. It's like, I think they put subwoofers into that thing behind the row of seats. So it is kind of cool. So if you do have the opportunity to see this, it does appear to be running the same price as an IMAX screening or a 3D screening. So it'd be worth it if you can get that screening instead in the Dolby Cinema. Whether or not it's worth it for every movie that's going to premiere in that is, is to be determined. But for Endgame, it definitely was. And to kind of pad this out a little bit so it's not like a 2-minute long discussion of what a Dolby Cinema is, because I didn't know until today, I'm going to talk about plot holes in Endgame, considering the spoiler embargo imposed by the directors came up today. I'm going to talk a little about, some of my biggest concern with the plot of this movie. And it's something that I realized when I was at work the other day. And I was, I work retail, so it's not a lot of thought that goes into my job. So I'm there, I'm doing my job, my things I have to do on my daily basis, and I'm thinking about it, and the question I have is, what purpose is there for Thor and Rocket to go to Asgard to get the ether, and then for Rhodey, Nebula, Black Widow and Hawkeye to go to 2014 separately, when they can just go all together at once to nowhere? Because really, of all the Infinity Stones, the only one that there are 2 that really have very limited tracking as to where they are in various places in the movies, and it's the Ether and the Power Stone. The Power Stone doesn't really make a debut doesn't make its appearance outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, except for when it's already in Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. And same thing with the Ether. It only appears in Thor: The Dark World. And then, again, we don't see him actually get the ether as a stone. We see him with it in the gauntlet already completed. So the question I have is, why not go to Nowhere? Which would be the best place to go. Because in Nowhere, a little bit after what happens on Morag, both the ether, which is in the possession of the Collector, and the Power Stone, which is going to be sold to the Collector, are in play. And then on top of it, you can send off both whoever you want to go to Vormir to get the Soul Stone. So really, that's just my feeling on this, is that I think the only reason they went to Asgard is because they kind of wrote themselves into a corner where they needed Thor's hammer to come back, and they had already destroyed it, so they needed it to come back in some way. So they sent it to they had to go to Asgard, and it also gives Thor a great character moment. Giving him the opportunity to talk to his mom and, realize, what he needs to do and who he needs to be. And I think that was why they ultimately went with that decision, is for the narrative's purpose. But I think that in terms of conciseness of the story, they could have done that instead, which would have been interesting as well. I think it also would have blown the budget a little bit more. To get those 3 Infinity Stones, considering The scene on Morag was relatively cheap to shoot, I'm assuming. The scene on, what's it called? The scene on Asgard was relatively cheap to shoot as well. So, I think going and doing a set-piece battle, where the Guardians are already fighting Ronan, there would have been a little bit excessive. What else is there? I'm trying to think what else is interesting. I mean, that Spider-Man trailer dropped today, and it introduces that Jay Garrick's gonna be the bad guy in the new one. I'm sorry, I mean Mysterio, but he's doing the same character arc as Hunter Zolomon in what's it called? In The Flash season 2. I've seen this movie before. Introducing the concept of alternate Earths, that's pretty cool. And it looks like, really thinking about it, and what Mordo's character is, completely unrelated to this, but based on who Mordo's character is and what Mordo talks about while he's, in Doctor Strange, and also seeing that what we see from the Ancient One in Endgame, I think that Doctor Strange 2, whatever they call it inevitably when it comes out, is going to be a movie that really deals with the repercussion of what happens in a world, in a universe where the Infinity Stones no longer exist. And that'll be cool to see. And I was also thinking about it, there's only really, I'm thinking about it, and not putting the Soul Stone back wouldn't have been the worst thing. If they just kept the Soul Stone, that's not the worst, and they created a new Infinity Watch, and they gave it to the Sovereign, and they did whatever with it, that wouldn't have been the worst thing. If they kept the Space Stone that they stole from the 70s, I mean, in that alternate timeline, I guess that the Skrulls don't escape, Captain Marvel never gets her powers, the Avengers never happens, that one creates a little bit of a weird ripple effect. The Mind Stone not being there would be for the better. The Time Stone's really the only one that creates a bad offshoot, and that's because Dormammu would have destroyed all of the world when Calicius opens up the portal to the Dark Dimension. Because then even the Power Stone prevents Xandar from being destroyed by, by Thanos and by, what's-his-name's forces. Lee Pace's character, Ronan. Ronan's forces in Guardians of the Galaxy. They don't get invaded. And there's one other Infinity Stone. Mind, space, time. Reality stone being removed from where it is prevents from happening. Nowhere's destruction in that alternate offshoot of reality, and then also in Asgard doesn't get fucked up by the Dark Elves, and possibly Frigga doesn't die. So really the only things that really need to be returned in our timeline were the Time Stone, arguably the Space Stone. You can make the case one way or the other. We don't know the widespread repercussions of what happens if Carol doesn't have her powers, and Thor's hammer. But that's the other thing at the end of the movie, is I think keeping the Infinity Stones in the current time of 2022 would have been more useful. Just for longevity's sake, but I don't know if that would have... It just creates a whole host of issues. Why don't they just use the Infinity Stones for this? It's like in Phase 2, and everyone's like, why don't they just call in the other Avengers? It's like, well, no, logistically, it's expensive. So we'll wrap up there for today. We'll be back with another movie next week, possibly Detective Pikachu, not entirely sure. But until then, have a great rest of your week.